This is Dennis Wing, and we're doing polyrhythms today. I'm going to show you how to clap any number of beats over any other number of beats with your foot. And this will give you a physical sensation of performing virtually any polyrhythm. So I'm going to explain how it works, and then I'm going to walk you through any number of beats between 2 and 8 with your hands clapping over any other number of beats between 2 and 8 with your feet, and you'll be able to perform virtually any polyrhythm within those numbers, and you'll also have a sense of how to do it for larger numbers if necessary. So I'm going to use 3 to 4 as an example. We're going to clap 3 times over 4 foot taps. Okay, now you can't see my foot, but I'm going to use the metronome to demonstrate that. But in performing along with me, you really should tap your foot, not just hear the metronome and clap along and kind of hear it. You really should tap your foot, and so you can feel the actual both parts of the polyrhythm in your body. This is how it works. When you have 2 different numbers, you want to clap 3 times over 4 foot taps. You have to find the common ground, and obviously the common ground between 3 and 4 is 12. So in order to get the 12 subdivided into 4 parts, you have to think in 3. So in other words, whatever the hand is doing, in this case 3, has to think in 4, and the foot, which is going to do the 4, is going to think in 3. I'm going to demonstrate. All right, so we're going to start with the foot first. The foot is going to think in 3. So you're going to subdivide each beat into 3 parts, like 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, once you got that, now you can, while you're still tapping with your foot, you think in 4 with your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So that's the first 2 steps, and I have all these mapped out visually for you to see. First of all, I mapped out the overall process. In order to avoid confusion of which part is which, I just labeled it as H to F. So hands to foot, right? Maybe you think of it as accents to pulse or clap to tap. Actually, I might say clap or tap during this video. So that's what I mean. Clap means hands, tap means foot. And so the summary of what we did, the foot thinks in subdivisions of the hand, right? And then you regroup so that you think in subdivisions of the foot for the hand to clap. All right. So we did 3 to 4. Tap the foot in 4 beat cycles with each beat subdivided into 3 parts. That was 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, like that. And then we regrouped it from the perspective of the 4, so that the hands can clap in 3, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, while we're still tapping the foot. Now, the third step is to hear how the 2 parts relate to each other. Okay, this is a critical step to make sure that you're performing it correctly. The hand is clapping 3 while the foot is tapping 4. I personally think it's easier to think of it from the perspective of the 4, because the second hand clap, right? First of all, the first hand clap is obviously going to go on the first beat, and so is the foot, and that's a no-brainer. But the second hand clap is going to go right after the second foot tap. So it'll, if you see what I mean, like together, after, right? And then the third clap goes right before the 4th click. So in other words, 3, 4, 1, like after, before, after, before, right? And when you go to the diagrams now, you'll see I use conical, the Indian syllables. First you think in 3, takita, 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 takita for the foot, and then you regroup. Takadimi, 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 takadimi. So how this works is, see this is the foot tapping in 4, right? And these bar lines, the first ta is where the hand claps. You got that, you got this, and this ta. See the little bar lines right here? That's where the claps are going to go. So this is what we were just talking about. Notice that the second clap goes right after the second foot tap, and the third clap goes right before the fourth foot tap. So this may seem like a little bit of overkill if this polyrhythm is already familiar to you, but as you'll see when we get to things like 5/7 or more challenging polyrhythms, that this kind of visualization comes in handy. And I want to just say up front, we're not always going to be consistent about which perspective we choose. Like we're not always going to do it from the perspective of the hands, and we're not always going to do it from the perspective of the foot for any particular polyrhythm. We're just going to do it from the perspective of the one that I think is easier to get you into it. Because once you're into it, you're in it. Like for example, when we do 5/3, 5 claps over 3 taps, I think it's easier to think of it from the perspective of the foot tapping in 3. Versus when we do 5/4, I think it's easier to think of it from the perspective of the 5. So, it doesn't really matter which one you choose. I'm just letting you know it's not necessarily going to be consistent, but you will feel them. You will feel each polyrhythm. All right, so let's jump in. All right, so the first thing we need to do is make sure you're familiar with the conical syllables. I use these syllables because they're easier than counting numbers. Unlike my example with 3/4 where I was going 1 2 3 2 2 3 3 2 3, like that can be confusing to some people, and you're going to superimpose 3/4, so there's always 2 sets of numbers, and it's too much thinking. Like rhythms are supposed to be felt more than intellectualized. We're only intellectualizing to the degree that we can get into the feeling of each polyrhythm. That's important. So I think the syllables are a faster gateway than thinking numbers. So with me, clap along each subdivision. We got, for 2s, we got taka 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 taka. For 3, we got takita 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 takita. 4, takadimi 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 ta. 5 is tadike naka. I also sometimes say tadike nakam. Tadike naka, 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 tadike naka ta. And then 6 is like 4 plus 2, so takadimi taka. Takadimi taka, 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 takadimi taka ta. And then 7 is 4 plus 3, so takadimi takita, 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 takadimi takita ta. And then 8 is 2 sets of 4, but rather than just say takadimi, we can think first half, second half by doing takadimi takajuno. Takadimi takajuno, 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 takadimi takajuno ta. All right, now that we got that done, we're going to jump right into 2/3. So it's 2 claps for 3 foot taps, and I even summarized the process. First, you tap F number of beats, so 3 beats with H subdivisions. 3 beats subdivided into 2. That would be taka, 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 taka. So again, you can't see my foot, but please tap your foot. Don't just listen and clap, because that's only part of it. So tap your foot with me, like tap, 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 tap. Taka, 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 taka. And this is the diagram that summarizes what you're doing right now. Okay, next step is to regroup in terms of the F. So you're going to regroup in terms of 3 cycles of 3 and clap at the beginning of each cycle. So you have, while your foot is tapping, so you're going to still tap taka, 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 and you're going to think and clap takita, 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 takita. Okay, now the way to think about that to make sure you're performing it correctly is notice that the second clap, this ta right here, goes right in between the second and third foot taps. So it's like as if it were going like 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. So in other words, we're choosing to look at this polyrhythm from the perspective of 3, which I think is easier than vice versa. Once you're in it, you're in it, and it's helpful to. And we're going to see 3/2 anyway in a little while, so we'll come back to this from a different perspective. But those are the steps right there. We're going to move on. Some of these are going to be super easy, and some of these are not going to be easy. So we're just going to go quicker on the easier ones. Here's two claps to 4 taps. So first we think in 2 and we tap in 4 beat cycles like taka 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 taka. So I hope your foot is tapping like with the metronome. And now we're going to clap in cycles of 4. So taka dimmy 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 taka dimmy. Now that one happens to be easy. It's 2 taps for each clap. Right, so you're tapping twice for each clap. That one's easy. It's just 2 to 4 is obviously the same as 1 to 2. I don't have to tell you that. 2 to 5, you're going to tap 5 beats that are broken up into 2 each, like taka 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 taka. And now we're going to think tadike naka over that. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Tadike nakum, 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 da. The way that that relates is that you notice that the second clap goes right between the 3rd and 4th foot tap. If you see that, this is your foot, and the bar lines right after the bar line, the ta right after the bar line is the clap. So again, all right, make sure you're doing that while your foot is tapping. All right, 2 to 6, obviously the same as 1 to 3, so we already know what the relationship's going to be. We think in 6 beats subdivided into 2. Taka 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 taka. Now we're gonna think taka dimmy taka. Taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka. Now that one happens to be easy. It's 3 foot taps for 1 clap, right? So we don't have to think too much about that. Now 2 to 7. We have 7 beats subdivided into 2. So that's taka 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 da. And in order to clap 2 over that, we need to think in 7, and it's going to be taka dimmy takita 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 da. Now in order to know you're doing it right, you just notice that the second clap is between the 4th and 5th foot taps. So it's as if you were going like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. Now we said we weren't going to use numbers, but sometimes it's helpful to think in different ways to make sure you got it right. All right, so that's 2 to 7. Moving on, 2 to 8. Obviously, this is going to be every 1 clap for every 4 foot taps. We already know that, but we're just going to go through the steps anyway. We have 8 beats subdivided into 2. Taka 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 taka, and then putting taka dimmy taka juno over that. Taka dimmy taka juno taka dimmy taka juno taka dimmy taka juno taka dimmy taka juno. And we see that it's the same same as we predicted, which was 4 foot taps to 1 clap. All right, moving on to 3 to 2. Now, we're gonna tap F number of beats, i.e. 2 beats, subdivided into H parts, so 3 parts. Takita, 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 takita. In order to clap 3 times over that, we're gonna think in 2. So taka 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 ta. And how those two relate to each other is the second foot tap goes right in between the second and third clap, as if you were going like 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. So that's how that works. All right, moving on to 3 to 4. We did that already in the example, but we'll do it quick right here just to be consistent. We have 4 beats subdivided into 3. So that's takita, 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 takita. In order to clap 3 times over that, we're going to think in 4, meaning takadimi, 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 takadimi. Okay, and the way to think about that is that we talked about that earlier. The second clap goes right after the second foot tap, but the third clap goes right before the fourth foot tap. If you divided this into triplets, the 4 into triplets, it'd be 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, like that. So that's how I think of it. I think of it from the perspective of 4. All right, now for 3 to 5, we're going to have 5 beats subdivided into 3 parts. Takita, 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 da. And then we're going to say tadike nakam on top of that. Like tadike nakam, 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 ta. All right, so in order to perform that, I actually think of it from the point of view of the 3 and how it falls against the 5. In other words, you have a foot tap on ta, then na, then di, then ka, then ge. Notice it's going back by 2. Like since 3 and 5 are 2 beats apart, then it's going to go back by 2s. Like the ta, di, ge, naka, it's going to go the first and third partial, then the second and fifth partial, and then the third partial, because it's going back by 2s, if you see what I mean. So in other words, tadike naka, tadike naka, tadike naka, tadike naka, tadike naka, tadike naka. That's how I'm thinking about tapping the foot. So my foot is thinking tadike naka, 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 tadike naka. Right? And then it's easy to do the clap then because you're just tapping on the tas. So let's do that again. 2, 3, 4, 5. Tadike naka, 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 ta. It can be tough to perform some of these, so if necessary, slow down the metronome. I'm at 80 right now. One word on the tempos is that I tried to keep the subdivisions for all the polyrhythms relatively the same. So my tempos are 120, then 80, 60, 48, 40, 34, and 30 as we progress through the whole thing. So I started at 120 for the 2s, and now I'm at 80 for the 3s, etc. So when we do 3 to 6, it's obviously going to be 1 clap per 2 foot taps, but we're going to go through the steps anyway. We have 6 beats subdivided into 3. Takita, 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 da. That's for our foot. And then our hand is going to think in 6 so we can clap in 3. Like this. 5, 6. Takadim, taka, takadim, taka, takadim, taka, takadim, taka, takadim, taka, takadim, taka, ta. and you're left with one clap for two foot taps. So there's really not much to look at here. I'm gonna move to 3 to 7. We have 7 beats subdivided into 3. Takita, 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 da. In order to get 3 claps over that, we're going to think in 7. So takadimi takita, 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 ta. So in order to make sure you're performing that one correctly, you're going to think in 3s. Basically, it's easier to think that this second clap is right after the 3rd foot tap and right before the 6th foot tap. You know, if you divided this 7 into 3 parts like we did up here, it's easier to think that way. In other words, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4, 5, a 6, 7. See, but the thing is, when I think like that, I'm less accurate with this clap. But it's a way to get into it, to make sure that they're approximately in the right place, and then I'll actually go back to thinking takadim takita, takadim takita, takadim takita. Right? So you can refine, sometimes you can refine your performance of the thing by thinking one way to make sure things are right, and then thinking the other way to make sure they're right on the money. So in that particular one, I think it's faster to get in via the thinking in groups of 3, and then refining it by thinking in 7. All right, 3 over 8. We have 8 beats subdivided into 3. Takita, 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 da. In order to clap 3 times over that, we're going to think in 8, which is takadim, takajun, takadim, takajun, takadim, takajun, takadim, takajun, takadim, takajun, takadim, takajun. Okay, now in order to know how well you may be doing on this one, you'll notice that the second clap comes right before the 4th foot tap and right after the 6th foot tap. So if you were thinking in 3, you might think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, like. Okay, but somehow I feel like I'm less accurate there. It'll get you in, but now I'm going to refine it by thinking in terms of thinking in 8, like taka din, taka jun, taka din, taka jun, taka din, taka jun, taka din, taka jun. Yeah, I feel like I'm more accurate like that. All right, so that's how 3 relates to 8, and then we're going to go into 4s. All right, when we clap 4 times to 2 foot taps, obviously we're going to clap twice over 1 foot tap. So we're going to have 2 beats subdivided into 4. That's takadimi, 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 takadimi. That's how our foot is tapping. And then we're going to think in 2s in order to clap 4 times over that. taka 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 ta. So as we saw, we're clapping twice for each foot tap. That's a no-brainer because 4 to 2 is the same as 2 to 1. 4 to 3, we're tapping 3 times, subdividing each beat into 4, and it'll sound like this. Taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, da. In order to clap 4 times over that, we're going to think in 3, like ducky to 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 ducky. Like that. And how the two relate to each other is you can think of it is in terms of 3. You can think that the foot taps on the ta, then the ki, then the da. Ducky da 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 da. So that's how I'd probably do it. It's also possible that if you thought in 4, you know, in terms of like let's say 1 eanda instead of conical, just to give you an example of how you can think the other way. If you did 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, and then the claps were on the then the and, then the e, right? So the of 1, the e, the and of 2, and the e of 3. 2, and 3 e. Somehow I don't feel like I'm as accurate on that as the other way around. So I like to think in 3. So the foot goes ducky da 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 ducky da. Four to 5. We have 5 beats subdivided into 4. Taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, da. In order to clap 4 times over that, we're going to think in 5. So ta di ke nakum 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 ke nakum ta di 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 ke nakum ta. Let's just do it without the counting, just feeling it. Okay, on this particular one, I realized that since 4 and 5 are only 1 beat apart from each other, the foot taps go backwards within the 5. So in other words, the ta, and then ka, and then na, then ge, then di. It's like reading it backwards, like ta, ka, na, ge, di, like that. So that's how I keep track of where the foot is. So you could say in this particular case, I'm thinking of the 5 as like the bass. Tadikinaka, 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 tadikinaka. Another interesting phenomenon about that is that the second clap, like there's a bit of symmetry. There's always a bit of symmetry there. It's just not always immediately apparent. Second clap goes right after the second foot tap, right halfway through between the third and fourth foot tap, and right before the fifth foot tap. So hope that helps on how to do 4 to 5. When you do 4 to 6, you have 6 beats subdivided into 4. 6. taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, taka dimmy, da. In order to clap 4 times over that, we're going to think in 6. So we're going to say taka dimmy, taka, 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 da. As you can hear and see, you're tapping twice for each for each 3 foot taps. So the first ta plus this ta, go over these first 3 beats, because obviously 4 to 6 is the same as 2 over 3. So how does this relate? It's the same as when we saw 2 over 3. It's just doubled up. So I won't go into detail on that. This ta is halfway through between the second and third foot tap. All right. So moving on from that. All right, for the 4 to 7, we have 7 beats subdivided into 4. Let's taka-dimmy, 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 da. And in order to clap 4 times over that, we're going to think in 7, which is taka-dimmy, takita, 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 taka-dimmy, takita. Okay, now how these relate to each other. I actually think of it as like it goes back by one set. It goes ta and ta, the first and the fifth partial, and then it goes second and sixth, and then third and seventh, and then the remaining fourth one. So in order to get at this one, I'm actually thinking about how the foot falls in relation to the 7. Taka-dimmy, takita, 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 da. All right, that's just the way I do it. And it would go taka-dimmy, takita, taka-dimmy, takita, taka. So if you can remember, ta and ta, and then you go back one for each subsequent cycle, and then on the final one is only one right in the middle. That could get you there. And then 4 to 8, we have 8 beats of 4. Taka-dimmy, 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 da. Obviously, clapping 4 times over that is the same as clapping once for every 2 foot taps. So that part's easy, but we're going to do the steps anyway. It'll go taka-dimmy, taka-juno, 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 ta. Or, like we said, 2 foot taps to every 1 clap. All right, going into the 5s, we have 5 claps to 2 foot taps. We are going to tap 2 beats subdivided into 5. Ta-di-ke naka, ta-di-ke naka, ta-di-ke naka, ta-di-ke naka, da. In order to clap 5 times over that, we're going to think in 2. So taka, 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 taka. Taka, 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 taka. Okay, now it's easy to hear that the second foot tap falls right in between the third and fourth clap. So it's as if you were going like 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. That foot would fall on the end. Like 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. Like that. So that's how you can get into 5 to 2. and you go 5 to 3. Now you have 3 beats subdivided into 5. Da di ke naka, 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 da. In order to clap 5 times, we're going to think in 3. Takida, 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 takida. So the way I think about this is how the foot falls against the 3. So I'm actually thinking in 3. I mentioned this earlier in the video that I think it's easier to think where the foot falls, that it goes da, da, ki, right? So takida, 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 da, like that. So if you can get that, then you can get, that's your gateway into it. All right, 5 to 4. We have 4 beats subdivided into 5. So da di ke naka, da di ke naka, da di ke naka, da di ke naka, da. And in order to clap 5 times over that, we're going to think in 4. Taka dimi, 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 taka dimi. Okay, so in order to get in that rhythm, you could think of it from as to how the foot falls against the 4, like taka dimi, taka dimi, taka dimi, taka dimi, taka dimi, da. Notice it goes right through the word, like right in order. Taka dimi, you know, first the ta, then the ka, then the di, etc. So that's one way into it. Like I personally like to think about it from the point of view of the 5 and where the claps fall against that. So if you look directly up here, like where this ta is also this ka, right? Now this is just the way I like it. If you like it the other way, that's fine. And this second, or I should say third clap is on the na. So first we had ta, then ka, then na, then we're gonna have ge, then di. So it goes backwards. And that's just the way I like to think about it. So in other words, ta di ke naka, 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 ta di ke naka. Right, so that'll get you there as well. I just personally like to think that way better. But either way, there's always 2 different ways to think into any of these. So whichever one's easier for you. When you do 5 to 6, we have 6 beats subdivided into 5. Da di ke naka, 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 da. In order to clap 5 times over that, we're going to think in 6. Taka dimi taka 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 taka dimi taka. How to get into this? Well, you could think about it like that the clap is coming one partial later, like first they're together, then the clap comes one partial after the second foot tap, and then 2 partials after the third foot tap, and 3 partials after the third foot or fourth foot tap, which is also 2 partials before the 5th foot tap, and then finally 1 partial before the 6th foot tap. So that's you're thinking, you can think of it as increasing. You can also think of it as decreasing throughout the 6s. You have da, and then the final ka, and then, so in other words, the 1st and 6th partial, then the fifth partial here, then the fourth partial, then the third partial, and then the second partial. So that could be a way to do it too. So me personally, I like to think of where the claps are in relation to the foot first to kind of like just get me in, like it's just after the second, and then a little further after the third, and a little further after the fourth, which is before the fifth, just like I said it earlier. But then I'll fine tune by thinking the opposite way. It's the first tap is on ta, second tap is on D, and then third tap is on ge, fourth tap is on na, and fifth tap is on ka. So it just increases as you go along, like ta di ke nakam 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 ta. So that's the way I prefer it, where it's increasing. All right, going to fives and sevens, we have 7 beats divided by 5. Da di ke naka, 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 da. That's how our foot is tapping. And then in order to clap 5 times over that, we're going to think in 7, and it goes like this. Takadimi takida, 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 takadimi takida. Okay, so that one can be, it's one of the trickiest ones in the whole lot. And how I think of it is, I actually think of it from the point of view of the 7, and the foot taps are coming back every 2, right? So it goes taka, dimi, taki. So that's the first and 6th partial, right? And then from there it goes to the 4th partial, and then the 2nd partial. So it's going back by 2. So 6, 4, 2, and then it would be 7, 5, 3. That's how I think of it. Takadimi takida, 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 ta. So that could be a tricky one to work on, but that's how I do it. Now going to 5 to 8, you have 8 beats of 5. Ta di ke nakam, 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 ta. In order to clap 5 times over that, we're going to think in 8, which is takadimi takajuno, 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 takadimi takajuno. All right, so the way I think of this is actually in relation to thinking in 5, so up here. So I think of it as the clap is going to happen every other bar going back by 2s. Now bear with me on this. You do them together. You do ta di ke naka, ta di ke na. So the third partial of the second bar right here. And then you skip this bar, and then it's going to be the second partial of this bar, and then it's going to be the 5th partial of the next bar, skip a bar after that, and then the 3rd partial, and then skip a bar. So let me repeat that, because this can be difficult. So you have together, and then this ta is the same as this na. So you have every other bar, the 1st partial, then the 4th partial, skip a bar, you got 2nd partial, almost skip a bar, but you got the 5th partial here, and then skip a bar, and you have the 3rd partial here, then skip a bar. That's how I think of it. Like Tadike nakum 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 ta. That's how I think of it. So when we get into sixes, we have 6 claps for 2 foot taps. That's obviously going to be 3 claps per 1 foot tap, but we're going to go through the steps here. We got 2 beats of 6, like taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka. Then we're going to, in order to clap 6 times over that, we're going to think in 2s, like taka 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 ta. And obviously we have 3 claps per 1 foot tap. All right, next is 6 to 3. It should be very similarly easy. Taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka da. And now we're going to think in 3s in order to clap 6 times over that. Takita 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 da. So as you can see, we have 2 claps for each foot tap. All right. Moving to 6 to 4, we have taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka taka dimmy taka da. In order to clap 6 times over that, we're going to think in 4s. Taka dimmy 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 da. And obviously we have the same ratio we had earlier, which is 3 to 2. 3 claps per 2 foot taps. And the way to think about this is that this second foot tap goes right in between the second and third clap. The same thing over here, this 4th foot tap goes right in between the 5th and 6th clap. So as if you were going, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and like that. That's how you think of it. And then 6 to 5, we got 5 beats divided into 6 parts. Taka dimmy taka 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 da. In order to clap 6 times over that, we're going to think in 5. Tadike nakum 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 tadike. Okay, and the way I think about that is I think about it in 5s, and the fact that the foot goes back back by 1, I'm sorry. First you're on da, then you're on D, then you're on ge, then you're on na, then you're on ka. So that one's kind of easy. You just follow the da, di, ge, na, ga as you go along. So once again, I think in 5s, and I feel where the foot taps 1 beat later in each 5. Tadike naka 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 ta. All right, that's how you do that one. Then 6 to 7, got 7 beats divided into 6 parts. Taka dimmy taka 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 da. That's how we tap our foot. In order to clap 6 times over that, we're going to think in 7. Taka dimmy takita 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 taka dimmy takita. Takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, ta. Okay, in order to perform this, I'm thinking in 7, and unlike the previous example where it was increasing by 1, right? This one is decreasing by 1. So in other words, the 1st and 7th partial of the first 7 the first bar, let's call it, and then the sixth partial, then the fifth partial, then the fourth partial, then the third partial, then the second partial. In other words, takademi takida, 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 takademi takida. Takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, ta. Next is 6 to 8. We got 8 beats. Takademi taka, 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 ta. And now, in order to clap 6 times over that, we're going to think in 8. Takademi takajuno, 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 takademi takajuno. Okay, now in order to perform this, I actually think of it in terms of 6. And I think of these, where these are, like the third partial here and the seventh partial here. And then, this last bar is blank. So if you think of it like that, like takademi taka, takademi taka, takademi taka, takademi taka. So that's how I think of that. And then moving on to 7s. Yeah, 7 claps to 2 foot taps. So we tap 2 beats subdivided by 7. Takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, ta. In order to clap 7 times over that, we're going to think in 2, like taka 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 taka. How that works is you just note that the second foot tap falls between the 4th and 5th hand claps, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, like that. When it comes to 7 to 3, you got 3 beats divided into 7. Takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, da. In order to clap 7 times over that, we're going to think in 3s. So takida, 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 ta. How do you, well, let's do it without me counting. So in order to perform this one, I think about where the foot falls in relation to the clapping. So I actually think about it in 3. I think about the fact that the second foot tap comes 2/3, 1/3 into the third cycle, and then the third foot tap is 2/3 into the 5th cycle, as if it were like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and a it's like that. That's how I think about it. Takida, 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 ta. That's how I think about that. And then 7 to 4, we have 4 beats of 7. So takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, takademi takida, da. In order to clap 7 times on that, we're going to think in 4s. Taka-dimi, 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 taka-dimi. Taka-dimi, 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 taka-dimi. Taka-dimi, 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 taka-dimi. Okay, in order to think about that, I think about it from the point of view of four, and I think about how the foot taps, I'm sorry, go backwards. So it starts on one, and then the fourth partial, then the third partial, then the second partial. So 1, 4, 3, 2. Every other bar, kind of like, except right in here where it's on the fourth one, it's almost every other bar. But here you got to skip a bar, here you skip a bar, and here you skip a bar. So every other bar going backwards. That's how I think of it, like this. Takadimi, 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 ta. And then for 7 to 5, we got 5 beats of 7. Takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita ta. In order to clap 7 times over that, we're going to think in 5. Tadike naka, 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 ta. In order to think about this one, I'm thinking about it in relation to the 5s, and I'm thinking that it goes, unlike the other one where it went back by 1s, all right, this one goes ahead by 2. So first the first partial, then the third, then the fifth, then the second, and then the fourth partial of the 5. So in other words, tadike naka, 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 ta. So it sounds like this. Tadike naka, 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 ta. So that's how I think about 7 to 5. 7 to 6. For 7 claps over 6 foot taps, we have 6 beats divided into 7. Takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, takadimi takita, ta. In order to clap 7 times over that, we're going to think in 6, like takadimi taka, 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 takadimi taka. All right, now in order to think about this, I think about the fact that it increases by 1 partial. Since 7 is just greater than 6, it would go da, and then ga, di, mi, da, ga. So it exactly increases through the 6, like takadimi taka, 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 taka dimi taka 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 ta. For 7 to 8, we have 8 beats broken into 7 parts. Takadimi takida, 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 ta. In order to clap 7 times over that, we're going to think in eights, like takadimi takajuno, 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 ta. The way I think about that is 7 is just lesser than 8. So these are going to decrease by 1. So you have the first and 8th partial, then the 7th partial, then the 6th partial, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2. Right? So takadimi takajuno, 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 takadimi takajuno. Okay, when we jump into eights, we got 8 claps to 2 taps. We're going to tap our foot twice with 8 subdivisions per beat. Takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, ta. In order to clap 8 times, we'll think in 2, like taka 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 ta. And how to think of that is easy. It's 4 claps to 1 tap of the foot. When you get to 8 to 3, you have 3 beats divided into 8. Takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno ta. In order to clap 8 times, we're going to think in 3. Takida, 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 ta. And the way I think of that, you're doing 8 beats here. So the midpoint is the start of the second 4. Like the 5th bar is halfway point. And so the second and third foot taps are going sort of 4 partials before that and 4 partials after that. Another way to describe this is the second foot tap comes on the third partial of beat 3 and the second partial of beat 6, which I'm just pointing out is there's a symmetry there. They both straddle this middle beat right here. So in other words, takida, 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 ta. You go to 8 to 4. Now you have 4 beats divided into 8 parts. Takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno. In order to clap 8 times over that, we're going to think in 4s. Takadimi, 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 ta. Obviously, this is the same thing as 2 claps per 1 foot tap, because 8 to 4 is the same as 2 to 1. And then when we go to 8 to 5s, we have 5 beats divided into 8 parts. Takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, takadimi takajuno, ta. All right, and then in order to clap 8 times over that, we're going to think in 5s. So tadike nakum 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 ta. The way I think about that is I think about it in fives, and I know that the foot is gonna go back by 2. So da, na, di, ka, ge, kind of thing like that. So it's the first partial here, fourth partial here, second partial here, and then fifth partial, and then skip a bar. I'm on the third partial and then skip a bar. So I hope you follow that. It goes back by 2, in other words, against the 5, like tadike naka, 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 ta. All right, that's how I think about that. And then 8 to 6. You have 6 beats of subdivided into 8 parts each. Taka dimi taka juno, 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 taka dimi taka juno ta. In order to clap 8 times over that, we're going to think in 6. Taka dimi taka, 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 taka dimi taka ta. And obviously this is the same as 4 to 3 as we did earlier. As to how to perform this, I prefer to think in 6, and then I notice that the foot taps on the third partial here of the second bar and the fourth partial here of the third bar. Fourth bar is blank, and then the same cycle repeats for the next 4 bars. So I like to think in 6. In other words, taka dimi taka, 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 taka dimi taka ta. All right, and then last but not least, 8 to 7. We got 7 beats subdivided into 8. Taka dimi taka juno, 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 taka dimi taka juno ta. In order to clap 8 times over that, we're going to think in 7, like taka dimi takita, 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 taka dimi takita. Okay, so how do you think about that? Well, 8 is just 1 greater than 7, so it's going to increase by 1, like da, ga, di, mi, da, ki, da. So that's fairly easy to think about, like taka dimi takira, 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 ta. So that brings us to the end. I hope you enjoyed this presentation of polyrhythms. May it make you a stronger musician. If you want to check out my other 2 courses, I actually have 3 courses. One's modal, but because we're talking about rhythms here, I'm going to focus on the 2 rhythm ones. One's called How to Play Odd Time Signatures Easily. It's called, you just go to playoddtimes.com. And then the other one is the Rhythm Generator. It's how to generate an endless variety of rhythms within 4/4, and the web address will be as posted right there. All right, take it easy.